Rob, what did you get from what Ten Hag was saying? It's very early, and I get that. And I'm asking you to kind of sum up. What do you think this is going to be? Is it going to be a match made in heaven, Ratcliffe, and also Erik Ten Hag, or is it going to be something else? Right now, what are your first impressions about what he said about his meetings?
I mean, he certainly, when he was talking about it, sounded very positive. But I suppose he hasn't really got a choice. Essentially, he's got a new boss, and with anyone in that situation, in whatever walk of life you're in, your job is to impress that new boss because he's the guy that's going to hire or fire you. The problem that Ten Hag has got is that he sat down in those meetings in a position of weakness, in that after a relatively successful first season in charge, the start of this season has been, close to a disaster. And so it's always a bit nervous for a manager anyway when a new owner comes in, that the new owner's going to want his own man. And we saw that with Todd Bowley when he came in at Chelsea and sacked Thomas Tuchel after just a couple of weeks, even though Thomas Tuchel had won the Champions League for Chelsea in 2021. Obviously, Ten Hag hasn't been as successful as Tuchel and will be worried about his job. He sounded positive. He said that Jim Ratcliffe coming in as a minority stakeholder was positive. He said that they have good ideas and he's looking forward to working with them. The problem is that this is a results-driven business, and that the only way he's going to stay in this job to see what ideas Ineos and Jim Ratcliffe have is if the results pick up and he can show that he's the right man for the job.
You've spoken before about Graham Potter and how he's liked by Ratcliffe and the Ineos camp. Is there any more in that? Is that something that will always lurk if there are negative results for Ten Hag and Man United?
Absolutely. And that's the situation we're in now, is that Ten Hag really is living result by result. And the last couple haven't been very good. And so every time there's a negative result, there's going to be talk about, maybe Jim Ratcliffe wants to bring his own man in. We know that he likes Graham Potter. They tried to speak to him when they were looking for a manager for Nice in France in the summer. Obviously, that never materialised, but he's obviously a fan of Graham Potter, and there have been informal conversations about what Graham Potter's plans are for the future. When does he see himself back in management? Where does he want to be? And so every time there's a poor result, these stories will resurface. And even more so when you've got an FA Cup tie against Wigan, because United should be winning this game 99 times out of 100. The problem is that they just haven't been consistent this year. And Gary Neville said it on Sky a couple of weeks ago that you just can't trust them. You don't know what team is going to turn up from week to week. One day they're this thrilling comeback against Aston Villa to win 3-2, and then the next day they go to Nottingham Forest and lose limply 2-1. And while every Man United fan who's travelling to Wigan on Monday will expect them to win, there will be nagging fears in all of their heads that maybe this is just going to be another disastrous game. The problem is that Ten Hag, with a new owner to impress, can't afford that.
Stevie, 10.5 years ago, Ben Watson, in the first minute of added time, scored the winning goal for Wigan against Manchester City. No one gave them a hope that day, even the Wigan fans. What hope should they have? What chance do they have against Man United on Monday? Stevie, what do you reckon?
I've got to go back to that interview with Ten Hag. I'm sorry, but I love how he comes out with all they've got some great ideas. I mean, what's he talking about? Great ideas? What, they're going to play 12 men instead of 11? Or, I mean, let's win some games. Let's play some attacking football. I mean, I would love to know what took them so long to talk about. At the end of the day, I think from the minute that Jim Ratcliffe walks through the door, the results are going to be the deciding factor, whether he brings in Potter or anybody else. That's just the bare bones of it. And they can all, and Ratcliffe and Ten Hag can talk about how well they get on, all the great ideas. They had a great discussion. We're all on the same page. We're all pushing in the same direction. But if Ten Hag doesn't get results, then all of that is just a waste of. It's just blow. They're just blowing.
So how tricky a fixture is this on Monday then for Man United? No,
this shouldn't be a tricky fixture. Listen, Wigan, with all due respect, yes, they're at home. It's the FA Cup, but even a Man United side that might not be at their best should easily take care of Wigan. And again, I'd suggest if you lose 3-0 to Wigan in the FA Cup away from home, then maybe the change comes sooner rather than later. But as I just said it. It's about points. It's about winning games. It's about the way they play. And if Ten Hag doesn't sort his players out and get them at least playing attacking football, sometimes results go against you regardless of how well you play. But at the very least, he's got to play some good attacking football. But ultimately, it's about winning games. And if Ten Hag doesn't win games, then as I said, regardless of any conversation you have with whoever's in charge, you're at the door.
Before we get on to the big one at the weekend, Arsenal against Liverpool, Rob, I suppose you have to say, the 3 games that we've spoken about, Ange Postecoglou taking on Burnley in the FA Cup, Mauricio Pochettino taking on Preston, and Erik Ten Hag taking on Wigan. The biggest upset will be if any of the teams wins, but if Man United lose to a League One side, all 3 will get through, won't they?
You would expect so, but then obviously that's what the FA Cup third round is all about. I don't think that Preston and Wigan aren't in great form in their leagues, and I don't think that they are really going to have enough to beat Man United and Chelsea. The one maybe that I would look at is the Burnley game at Spurs. Burnley have had a poor start to the season, but are starting to find a little bit of form. We're well in the game against Villa when they lost 3-2. Postecoglou rested a lot of players for that cup game, that Carabao Cup game against Fulham, and lost. I do wonder whether he may look at it and rest a couple. Burnley company's already said that he's going to treat it like any other Premier League game, that he puts a full strength team out. Maybe out of the 3 games, that's the most likely to be an upset.